My name's Easton, and 2 years ago, my wife died in a car accident. Or at least, that's what I believed. Every night since, I've kept her number active, just so I could hear her voicemail, just to feel like she was still there. But one night, someone answered, and it was her voice. She said, "Honey, we need to talk. I'm alive. Before we dive into this unbelievable story, tell me, where are you watching from?" Don't forget to like, subscribe, and get ready for the next part, because everything changes after that call. It was past midnight on a Tuesday when it happened. I couldn't sleep again. The house was too quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your ears and makes you aware of your own heartbeat. I sat on the back porch, a half-empty bottle of whiskey sweating beside me, watching the fog drift across the yard like ghosts refusing to move on. Her ghost, especially. Clara's voice had been the one constant in my sleepless nights. Not her real voice, of course, just the one that lived inside her voicemail. "Hey, it's Clara. Leave a message, love you." 7 words. I'd memorized every breath between them. Sometimes I'd imagine she said them just for me, like she was smiling when she recorded it. That night, I told myself I'd listen one last time before finally letting her go. Maybe that was the lie I'd been telling myself for 2 years. I unlocked my phone, scrolled to Clara Redheart, and pressed call. The line rang once, twice. Then I waited for the familiar click that would open to her recorded voice. Only this time, it didn't click. There was a faint rustle, like movement. Then breathing. Slow. Steady. My heart skipped. I thought maybe my phone was glitching, or my mind was playing tricks again, the way grief sometimes does. I whispered her name, Clara. Then I heard it. Honey, it was her. Not a recording. Not static. Not a trick. It was her real voice, alive, trembling, and hauntingly clear. The sound punched through my chest, every cell in my body freezing. "Who is this?" I asked, my voice cracking, half in disbelief, half in terror. There was a pause, then she said, softly, "It's me, Easton." "Clara." The phone nearly slipped from my hand. I pressed it harder against my ear, as if that could make sense of what I was hearing. "That's impossible," I whispered. You're dead." "I can explain," she said. "But not over the phone. Please, just listen to me. Don't hang up." I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. My mind screamed that this was some sick joke, some cruel impersonation. But my heart knew that voice. The tone, the rhythm, even the tiny hitch in her breath when she was nervous. It was Clara. "Where are you?" I asked. "I can't tell you yet," she said, her voice trembling now. I'm sorry for everything. I had no choice." "What does that mean?" "Clara, where are you?" My voice grew desperate. "I'll find a way to explain," she said. "But please, don't tell anyone about this call." "Not yet." Then the line went dead. The silence that followed was deafening. I stared at my phone, waiting for the call timer to disappear, for some glitch message to pop up, something, anything, to prove I hadn't just heard what I did. But it was real. The call lasted 58 seconds. Her number, her voice, her words. I redialed immediately. Once, twice, 3 times. Each time, it went straight to voicemail. "Hey, it's Clara. Leave a message, love you." The same old recording. Mocking me now. I sat there for hours, phone in hand, staring into the dark yard as the night stretched on. My heart beat in uneven waves. Relief, disbelief, fear. Was it a cruel prank? A hallucination? Had someone hacked her number? Or was she really alive? I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, smiling, then fading behind glass and smoke. The accident replayed in my mind. The call from the police, the funeral, the empty coffin, the condolences from people who barely knew her. Everything felt too clean, too official, too fast. The next morning, I pulled out the old manila folder the police had given me 2 years ago, the accident report. It was stained with old coffee and grief. I'd never really read it beyond the first page back then. I couldn't bear to. Now, I devoured every word. Vehicle, 2017 gray Subaru Forester. Owner, Clara Hayes. Registered address, 2518 West Oak Street. Collision at mile marker 12, Highway 22. Car engulfed in flames. Identification confirmed by personal effects. Personal effects. That meant her necklace. Her ring. The same one she never took off. But I realized something. There was no DNA confirmation. No autopsy. I'd signed the cremation papers without even questioning it. They told me the body was too damaged for viewing, and I'd just believe them. Because it was easier that way. I sank back in my chair, clutching the report. What if the body in that car wasn't hers? What if she had somehow survived? My phone buzzed suddenly, jolting me. A text. Unknown number. It read, "Please stop calling the police station. You're going to make things worse." My blood ran cold. I hadn't called anyone yet. Not the police. Not her sister. Not a soul. So how did they know? I dialed the number immediately. It rang once, then went dead. When I tried again, it said, "Number not in service." I stared at the message for a long time, feeling the walls of my living room closing in. My hands were shaking. My throat dry. "Clara," I whispered to the empty room. "What the hell is happening?" The next morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to sit around waiting for another ghost call. I needed answers. Real ones. So I drove to the police precinct that had handled her case. The same detective, Mikhail, was still there, older now, his gray hair slicked back. I told him everything. About the call. About the message. About how nothing made sense. He looked at me for a long time, then sighed. "Easton, I think you're grieving again. It happens. Voices, dreams." "It wasn't a dream," I said sharply. "It was her." He rubbed his temples. "We identified the body based on the items recovered. Her necklace, her license, her car. You refused an autopsy back then, remember?" That word hit me like a brick. Refused. I had refused because I couldn't stand the thought of them cutting her open. Now I wished I had. I left the station with the report in hand, mind spinning, heart pounding. I didn't know what to believe anymore. But one thing was certain. If that was Clara's voice on the other end of the line, then someone had lied to me for 2 years. And I was going to find out who. The days after that call blurred together. I stopped going to work, barely ate, barely slept. Every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it was her, but it never was. Just spam calls, reminders, and silence. I kept replaying the sound of her voice in my head. It wasn't just similar, it was her. The tiny way she said my name, the soft S that lingered at the end of her words. You can't fake that. Not even AI could. I knew my wife's voice like my own heartbeat. Still, logic kept trying to pull me back. People don't come back from the dead. So if someone was pretending to be her, why? And if she was truly alive, how could she disappear so completely? I needed answers. Real ones. Not memories. Not recordings. So I went back to the only place that might still hold the truth. The police station in Salem, Oregon. The same one that had handled the accident. Detective Mikhail wasn't pleased to see me again. He was older, slower, his eyes carrying that dull glaze of a man who'd seen too much tragedy to care about one more. He glanced at the accident report I'd brought. "Easton, I told you before, your wife's car was found completely burned out. The fire department pulled what was left from the wreck. Identification was based on her personal items. Her necklace and license," I said. "No DNA, right?" He hesitated. "You refused the autopsy." "I know I did," I said quietly. "But if we didn't confirm it through DNA, how can you be sure it was her?" He leaned back, sighed. "We had no reason to believe otherwise. You confirmed the jewelry was hers." "But jewelry can be planted," I said. My voice cracked under the weight of my own words. "You don't understand," I heard her voice. He studied me for a long time, pity softening his face. "Grief does strange things to people, son." I left before I said something I'd regret. On the way home, my mind spun out of control. If she really had faked her death, she would have needed help. Money, documents, maybe someone inside the system. Who could have done that? I parked in my driveway and sat there for half an hour before finally getting out. The house felt like a museum of her absence. Her books on the shelf, her jacket still hanging by the door. I hadn't been able to move them. I walked into her study and powered on her old laptop. She'd used it for everything: work, personal writing, emails. I hadn't touched it in 2 years. The login screen appeared. Password required. I tried the first one that came to mind. AS Clara 2013. Wrong. Then Sunset Bay, the place where we honeymooned. Wrong again. Then I tried Honey Always. Click. It opened. Her desktop was still filled with folders, lesson plans, photos, essays she'd graded. But one file caught my eye. Private. Inside, I found a string of emails. Most were from months before the accident. But one, dated a week before the crash, stood out. From Clara Hayes. To Marcus Hale. Subject: Missing manuscripts. The body of the email was short but strange. I told you I wouldn't stay quiet. If this gets out, it's on you. I'm not part of this anymore. Marcus Hale. I didn't recognize the name. A quick Google search told me he was a senior editor at a large publishing house, Redwell Literary Group, the same company that had published the anthology Clara contributed to 2 years ago. What could he have to do with her death? My heart pounded as I scrolled through more messages, mostly professional, but the last one from him chilled me to the bone. Clara, you're making a mistake. You don't know who you're dealing with. Stop contacting me. That was 3 days before she died. I leaned back, trembling. My wife had been in trouble. Real trouble. But why hadn't anyone told me? I decided to reach out to her sister, Lydia. She and Clara had been close, until the funeral, when grief and anger tore us apart. I hadn't spoken to her in over a year. When she picked up, her tone was cold but cautious. Easton, yeah, it's me. A pause. Why are you calling? Lydia, did Clara ever mention a man named Marcus Hale? From Redwell Literary. There was a long silence on the line. Then she said, why are you bringing this up now? Because someone answered Clara's phone, Lydia. I heard her voice. The air grew heavier. I could hear her breathing change. That's not funny, she said finally. I'm not joking. It was her. I swear it. You need help, Easton. You can't keep doing this to yourself. Please, I begged. Just tell me if you know anything. Anything at all. She's dead, Lydia said sharply. You have to stop. Then she hung up. I sat there, the dial tone droning in my ear like a taunt. But something in her voice told me she knew more than she was letting on. Later that night, as I pored over Clara's old papers again, I got another strange call, but not from Clara's number. This one was from a local florist. Hi, Mr. Hayes, a woman said cheerfully. Just confirming the flower delivery for tomorrow. 12 white roses to your address. I froze. I didn't order any flowers. Oh, she said, confused. It's under the name Clara Hayes. She canceled the order this morning, but since you're her husband, I didn't let her finish. Wait, when did she place the order? It says 2 days ago. I hung up, hands trembling so hard the phone nearly fell. 2 days ago? That meant whoever called me wasn't just a voice. They were close enough to know where I lived. Close enough to order flowers under her name. By midnight, my living room looked like something out of a crime show. Her old case file, her emails, a map with pins tracing every lead I could find. My mind raced in circles. Maybe she was alive. Maybe she'd been forced to disappear. Maybe she was in danger. Maybe she was watching me. At 2 a.m., I called her number again. It rang once, twice, then straight to voicemail. But this time, I left a message. Clara, if you're alive, please. Tell me why. Tell me where you are. I'll find you. When I set the phone down, the clock ticked louder than it should have. I stared at the blinking red light on my answering machine, half expecting it to turn on by itself. Outside, a car engine idled down the street. Headlights glowed through the curtains, then vanished. Something was happening. I could feel it. And deep down, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't imagining this. Someone wanted me to find her. Or someone wanted me to think I was. The night was quiet, the kind of silence that only deep grief can produce. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding my phone like it was a fragile piece of glass. It had been 6 months since Emily's accident. 6 months of pretending I was moving on, going to work, talking to friends, visiting her grave. But every time I came home, the emptiness swallowed me whole. That night, I don't even know what pushed me to do it again. Maybe it was habit. Maybe it was pain. Or maybe it was hope. That faint, irrational hope that hearing her voice on voicemail might make me feel less alone. I scrolled through my contacts until I found her name. Emily Redheart. The little heart beside it felt like a cruel joke now. I pressed call. The line rang once, twice, 3 times. Then came her voice. Hey, it's Emily. Sorry I missed you. Leave a message after the beep. That familiar cheer in her tone was like a knife in my chest. I closed my eyes, listening to the sound of her laugh, the way she drew out the word sorry. I whispered, I miss you, Em. I miss you so damn much. But then, something happened. Instead of the usual beep, I heard static. A faint crackle, like interference. Then, her voice again. But this time, it wasn't the recording. Honey. I froze. It wasn't possible. My heart stopped in my chest. The voice wasn't coming from a voicemail. It was live. Honey. she said again, soft but trembling. We need to talk. I felt the blood drain from my face. I dropped the phone, my hands shaking uncontrollably. It clattered against the floor, but I could still hear her voice faintly through the speaker. Daniel, please don't hang up. Every rational thought screamed at me that this was a prank or a cruel trick. But the voice, that voice was hers. Every syllable, every breath, it was Emily. I picked up the phone slowly, pressing it to my ear. Who is this? I whispered, my throat dry. It's me, she said. It's Emily. I stood up, pacing the room, my mind spinning. That's not funny. Whoever this is, stop. Daniel, she interrupted, her tone breaking. It's really me. Please, just listen. Tears welled in my eyes. My chest tightened. Emily's dead, I said hoarsely. She died in that car crash. I was there. I saw. I know what they told you, she said softly. But it wasn't true. I stopped breathing. The room felt like it was spinning. What are you talking about? I managed to choke out. There was an accident, she said. But I didn't die. Daniel. I was taken. My knees went weak, and I collapsed into the chair beside the bed. Taken? What did that even mean? By who? I whispered. There was silence for a moment, broken only by static on the line. Then she said, I can't tell you everything yet. It's not safe for either of us. But I need you to know. I'm alive, and I need your help. I couldn't process it. My heart pounded like it wanted to escape my chest. This is impossible, I said. If you're really Emily, tell me something only she'd know. There was a pause. Then she whispered, the night before our wedding, you told me you were scared your hands would shake when you put the ring on me. So I took your hands and said, then I'll hold them steady for you. I felt my breath catch. My entire body went numb. That was something only she could know. We never told anyone about that moment, not even our families. It was her. It had to be her. Emily, I whispered, voice cracking. Where are you? I can't say yet, she said quickly. They're watching me. Listening. Please, don't tell anyone I called. I swallowed hard. Emily, who's watching you? But she didn't answer. The line started to distort again, the static growing louder. I pressed the phone to my ear, desperate to hear her voice. Emily, don't hang up. Please. Her final words were faint, nearly lost in the noise. I love you, Daniel. Find me before they do. And then, silence. The call ended. I stared at the phone, trembling. My breathing was shallow, my pulse racing. The call log showed her number, just like always. No sign of anything unusual, but I knew what I heard. That voice. That plea. Emily was alive. The thought was so wild, so impossible, yet it wrapped around my mind like fire. If there was even a chance she was telling the truth, I couldn't ignore it. I opened my laptop and searched for anything about her accident. The official reports, the police records, the coroner's notes, all said the same thing. Fatal collision, car burned, body identified through dental records. But now, that certainty was gone. If Emily was alive, that meant the body wasn't hers. That meant someone lied. And if someone lied, why? For the rest of that night, I sat in the dark, staring at her last text. Love you. Be home soon. My mind played the words over and over again. She needed me. She said they were watching her. I didn't know who they were, but I was going to find out, even if it meant losing everything. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her voice again, trembling, desperate, terrified. Find me before they do. By morning, my mind was a storm. Logic told me this couldn't be real, that it had to be some cruel prank or delusion brought on by grief. But my heart knew Emily. I had heard her fear, her love, her truth. When the first rays of sunlight crept through the blinds, I was already at my desk. I opened her old laptop, the one I hadn't touched since she died. It still smelled faintly like her perfume, lavender and vanilla. My hands trembled as I powered it on. Password screen. For a second, I froze, then typed our anniversary date, 0509. The login clicked open immediately. My chest tightened. It was like stepping into a time capsule. Her last browser tabs, her emails, her open notes. I started digging. At first, everything looked normal. Messages with coworkers, saved recipes, pictures from our last vacation domain. But then I noticed something strange. A folder buried deep under work reports, named project_E. When I opened it, there were dozens of documents and spreadsheets, all password protected. I frowned. Emily was a marketing analyst. She had no reason to hide files like this. I tried the same password, 0509. It worked. Inside were reports full of technical jargon, encrypted communication logs, foreign company names, and something labeled BioCloud, confidential research notes. My heart started to race. None of this made sense. I scrolled further down and found an email draft, unsent. It was addressed to someone named Dr. K. Weston. If anything happens to me, don't trust the people from the agency. They're not who they say they are. I'll try to disappear until I know it's safe. Tell Daniel I love him. I sat there frozen. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. Emily knew something was coming. She was trying to warn someone, maybe even me. That's when I realized this wasn't a random accident. Someone wanted her gone. I copied everything onto a flash drive. Then, I did something reckless. I called her office. A woman answered. Henderson Research, this is Maria speaking. Hi, I said, trying to steady my voice. I'm Daniel Miller. My wife, Emily Miller, used to work there. There was a pause. Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss, Mr. Miller. Emily was such a wonderful person. Yeah, thank you, I murmured. I just had a question. Do you know a Dr. Weston? She worked with him on something called BioCloud. Another pause. Longer this time. I'm afraid I can't discuss internal projects, Maria said carefully. And Dr. Weston hasn't been with us for quite some time. How long? I asked. About a week before your wife's accident. A chill went down my spine. Do you know what happened to him? I really can't say, sir. Her tone changed, uneasy, cautious. But if I were you, I'd let the past stay buried. The line went dead. I sat there in silence, the phone pressed against my ear, my mind racing. Let the past stay buried. No, not a chance. If Emily was out there, alive and scared, I wasn't about to stop now. I started piecing things together, printing emails, cross-referencing names, building a web of connections on my corkboard like some obsessed detective. It looked insane, but I didn't care. Every string led to one thing, BioCloud. I looked it up online, but there was nothing. No company website, no public information. Just a handful of cryptic academic papers about neural mapping and synthetic memory retention. What the hell had Emily been working on? That evening, I drove to her old office building. It was in an industrial area, half deserted. The main doors were locked, but through the glass I could see the darkened reception area and the company logo, Henderson Research Labs. I circled around back. There was a security gate, but it looked old, rusted and half-functional. I slipped through a side opening and approached the loading bay. That's when I saw it. A light flickering in one of the basement windows. I crouched down and peered through the glass. Inside, two men in black suits were moving boxes into a van. I could only make out fragments of their conversation. Clean everything up. They said she was supposed to be gone. Yeah, well, apparently she's not. If he finds out, this whole thing blows open. My heart nearly stopped. They knew she was alive. I backed away slowly, my pulse pounding so hard I could hear it. When one of the men turned toward the window, I ducked behind a dumpster and held my breath. After a few seconds, the van doors slammed shut. They drove off. When the coast was clear, I ran back to the basement window. The light was still on, so I slid it open and crawled inside. The air smelled like chemicals and dust. The walls were lined with computer racks and strange equipment I couldn't recognize. On one of the desks was a folder labeled Subject E04. Inside were photos. Emily. Images of her in what looked like a hospital room. Wires on her arms, monitors around her head. The dates were after her supposed death. I nearly dropped the folder. My stomach twisted in horror. She had been alive all along. And whoever these people were, they were experimenting on her. Suddenly, I heard footsteps. Someone was coming. I shoved the photos back into the folder and ducked behind a metal cabinet just as a man entered. He was tall, wearing a white lab coat, holding a tablet. He muttered to himself as he typed, "Neural sync incomplete. Subject showing signs of independent recall. Not good." Then he turned toward the folder I had just touched. My breath caught. But before he could notice anything missing, his phone buzzed. He answered it quickly. Yes, I'm at the lab. No, there's no sign of him yet. If Miller calls again, we'll handle it." I froze. They were watching me. The man ended the call and walked out. The moment he was gone, I bolted for the exit, heart pounding. I didn't stop running until I was back in my car. My hands shook on the steering wheel. Everything was clear now. Emily's death wasn't an accident. She had been taken by the very people she worked for. And they were watching me too. I looked down at my phone, still open to her contact. My thumb hovered over the call button. I knew it was dangerous. I knew it could lead them straight to me. But I couldn't help it. I pressed call. The line rang once, twice. Then I heard it again, that same faint voice. Daniel, you shouldn't have gone there. I swallowed hard. Emily, I saw the lab. I saw the photos. What are they doing to you? She hesitated. Then, softly, it's not just me. There are others. Others. I repeated. Her voice trembled. They're testing memory replication, creating copies of people's consciousness. That's what BioCloud really is. The world seemed to tilt around me. And then she whispered, they didn't want me dead. They wanted me duplicated. My heart stopped. The call ended. When the call ended, I just sat there, the phone still pressed to my ear, staring blankly at the dashboard as rain started to drizzle against the windshield. My chest was tight. My head was spinning. Duplicated. That word echoed over and over in my mind until it didn't even sound real anymore. Emily wasn't dead, but maybe she wasn't alive in the way I thought either. I needed answers. Not guesses, not theories, answers. That night, I checked into a cheap roadside motel. The kind of place where nobody asks for ID, and the carpet smells like cigarettes and bleach. I locked the door, pulled the curtains shut, and opened my laptop. I started digging deeper into BioCloud. Nothing on the surface, again. But when I went through old digital archives and cache sites, I stumbled on a buried scientific conference listing from 3 years ago. Among the panel topics, Memory Transfer and Neural Continuity, Project BioCloud, a preliminary study. Presented by Dr. Kenneth Weston, Henderson Research Labs. Dr. Weston, the same man from Emily's email. I clicked through to the abstract, but the content had been deleted. Still, a few words from the cache snippet were visible. The replication of consciousness through neural pattern mapping. Human continuity beyond biological limitations. It was like something out of a science fiction horror story. But this was real. Emily had been part of it. If what she said was true, the Emily who'd called me might not even be her. That thought hit me so hard I had to stand up. I paced the tiny motel room, my heart thudding like a drum. What if they had copied her mind, her memories, her emotions, and put them in someone else? A body? Or something worse? I needed to find Dr. Weston. It took hours of searching through old university directories and obscure online forums, but I finally found a lead. A former research assistant who'd mentioned Weston in a blog post from 2018. The comments section was closed, but there was an email address. I sent a message immediately. My name is Daniel Miller. I'm looking for Dr. Kenneth Weston. It's about BioCloud. Please, it's urgent. Then I waited. For 2 days, nothing. Then, at 2:37 a.m., a reply came. Meet me tomorrow, 9 p.m., at the gas station on Highway 19, near mile marker 42. Don't tell anyone. The email was unsigned. Every rational part of me screamed not to go. It could have been a setup, but I'd already gone too far. The next night, I drove there, the same rain still falling, a cold mist curling around the trees. The gas station was nearly empty except for a single truck parked off to the side. As I stepped out, a man in his late 40s approached, wearing a dark hooded jacket. His eyes darted nervously around before he spoke. You're Miller? Yeah, I said. And you are? He hesitated. I worked with Weston. Briefly. Name's Alan. What can you tell me about BioCloud? I asked. Alan looked over his shoulder before answering. You need to understand, it wasn't supposed to be what it became. Weston wanted to use neural mapping to preserve knowledge, like storing a person's mind as data, so their expertise wouldn't die with them. I frowned. And that turned into what? Copying people. Alan nodded grimly. Once Henderson got funding from the government, everything changed. They started recruiting human subjects, promised them money, safety, even medical care. But they didn't tell them the truth. I felt my stomach twist. And Emily? Alan exhaled. She found out. Weston warned her to stop asking questions. She tried to leak files, but they intercepted her. The car accident was a cover. My blood ran cold. You're telling me she survived? He hesitated. Her mind did. They uploaded her neural map into a synthetic body prototype. Weston called it a continuity vessel. But something went wrong. The replicas started developing their own awareness, different emotions, memories merging. Some of them wanted to escape. I stared at him. You mean she's one of them? Alan's voice dropped. If she contacted you, it's because she's fighting back. But she's not the same Emily anymore. I couldn't breathe. My wife, my real wife, had died that night. And what remained was something wearing her memories, her voice, her love. She said there were others. I murmured. There are, Alan replied. And they're all breaking free. Weston disappeared before he could destroy the system. If BioCloud goes public, it'll mean chaos. Multiple versions of people walking around, all believing they're real. I tried to process it. It was too much. Then Alan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression changed. Fear. They found us, he hissed. Go. Before I could react, a black SUV screeched into the parking lot. Two men jumped out, the same ones I'd seen at the lab. Alan shoved me toward my car. Find Weston, he yelled. He's the only one who can shut it down. Gunfire shattered the night. I ducked behind the pump station, glass raining down. Alan fired back with a small pistol, shouting for me to run. I sprinted to my car, heart pounding. As I started the engine, I saw Alan collapse. The SUV's headlights swung toward me. I hit the gas. Tires screamed. Bullets cracked through my rear window. I sped down the highway, the rain turning the road into a blur of silver. After a few miles, I finally lost them, or thought I did. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely steer. Alan was dead, and now I was next. But at least I had a lead. Dr. Kenneth Weston, the man who'd created this nightmare. I pulled over at an abandoned rest stop and opened my laptop again. If Weston was alive, there had to be a trace somewhere. After hours of cross-referencing property records and academic grants, I found something. A cabin registered under a false name in northern Colorado. Remote. Hidden. And the date of purchase? The week after Emily's accident. That's where I'd find him. Before I closed my laptop, my phone buzzed. A message. From Emily. Please, Daniel. Don't go to him. He'll lie to you. Meet me instead. I'll explain everything. Attached was a GPS location, a spot only 50 miles from the cabin. I stared at the screen, torn. Do I trust the woman who sounds like my wife? Or the man who created her? Either way, one of them was lying. And whichever one it was, I'd find out soon. The road stretched endlessly through the dark mountains of northern Colorado, the headlights slicing through mist that rolled like ghostly waves across the asphalt. My grip tightened on the steering wheel as I followed the GPS pin that Emily, or whoever she was, had sent me. Every instinct screamed this was a trap. But if there was even a 1% chance that the voice on the other end really was her, I had to go. The coordinates led me to a gravel road hidden behind a line of pine trees. It wound up a steep hill, ending at a small cabin tucked deep in the woods. A faint light flickered through the window. I turned off the engine and sat for a moment, the silence pressing against my ears. Then I stepped out. The air was sharp and cold, the scent of rain and pine heavy in the air. As I approached the door, I hesitated. My hand hovered over the doorknob. Then, before I could knock, it opened. And there she was. Emily. At least she looked like her. Same chestnut hair falling to her shoulders. Same blue eyes that once felt like home. But there was something different about her face, something slightly off. Her skin looked too flawless, too still, as if she were holding herself together by force. Daniel, she whispered. You came. My breath caught in my throat. Emily. She smiled faintly. It's me. For a long second, I couldn't move. Every part of me wanted to believe her, to run forward, to hold her. But something about the way she moved, the way she blinked a second too late, it wasn't natural. I don't understand. I managed. They told me you died. I saw the car. I saw. She stepped closer, eyes glistening. I did die, Daniel. The crash destroyed my body. But they saved what was left, my memories, my mind. They put me into this. She lifted her sleeve and showed me a faint seam running along her wrist. It wasn't a scar. It looked like a manufactured line, too perfect. I'm not a clone, she continued softly. I'm me. Everything I remember, everything we lived through, it's still here. She touched her temple. I remember our wedding. The cabin in Maine. The day you proposed in the rain. Every detail. Tears burned behind my eyes. God, it sounded like her. It felt like her. But then she said something that made my stomach turn. They weren't supposed to find out I could feel. What do you mean? When they uploaded me, they thought I'd just be data, a copy they could study. But I remembered too much. I wanted too much. They realized they couldn't control me. She took my hand gently. Her touch was warm. Real. So I escaped, she whispered. And I've been hiding ever since. I stared at her hand in mine, torn between relief and terror. If this is true, why call me now? Her expression darkened. Because they're building more. Hundreds of copies. People who don't even know they're not real. Weston is still alive. He's planning to sell the technology. I took a step back. Weston? The man who made all this happen? I was going to find him. Her eyes widened. No, Daniel. He's dangerous. He'll tell you what you want to hear. But he's behind everything. He's the reason I had to die. She moved closer, her voice breaking. I need your help to destroy BioCloud. To end it before it spreads. Please. I hesitated. Something in her tone didn't sit right. It was too rehearsed, too urgent. Why me? I asked quietly. Why call me now after all this time? Because you're the only one who can reach him, she said. He still thinks you're harmless. He'll talk to you. If we get his access codes, we can wipe the servers. Her eyes locked onto mine. And then I can finally be free. The words echoed in my head. Be free. Before I could answer, a faint hum filled the air outside, the sound of an engine. Emily's face went pale. They found us, she whispered. A black SUV appeared at the bottom of the hill, headlights cutting through the fog. Get inside, she hissed. We ran back into the cabin as the sound of car doors slamming echoed through the trees. Emily grabbed a small device from the table, a metal case with wires and a blinking blue light. What is that? I asked. A pulse generator. It scrambles their tracking signals. But we only have one shot. Bullets shattered the window before I could respond. We ducked behind the couch as glass exploded around us. Emily activated the device. A sharp whine filled the air, and the lights flickered. Outside, the gunfire stopped. Come on, she shouted, grabbing my arm. We slipped out the back door, sprinting into the woods. My lungs burned as branches whipped against my face. Behind us, I heard shouting and static-filled radios. After what felt like forever, we reached an old dirt road. Emily stumbled to her knees, clutching her side. Emily, are you hurt? She shook her head. No, just, the body isn't meant for this kind of strain. Her voice cracked. For the first time, she looked fragile. Human. Daniel, she said softly, I know this is hard to believe, but I'm still me. I still love you. I knelt beside her, torn apart. The rain soaked through my clothes, but I didn't care. I don't know what to believe anymore, I whispered. She reached up, her fingertips brushing my face. Then believe this. Her lips touched mine, warm, trembling, desperate. And for that 1 second, I didn't care if she was real, synthetic, or something in between. She was Emily. My Emily. But as we pulled apart, I saw something flicker in her eyes, literally flicker. Like a faint pulse of blue light behind her pupils. What is that? I asked. Her gaze dropped. It's part of the neural link. Sometimes the data stream shows through. You mean, there's still a connection? To BioCloud. She nodded slowly. That's why I need your help. I can't disconnect myself without destroying everything I am. If we can reach Weston's facility, maybe. She stopped suddenly, her head jerking to the side like she'd been electrocuted. Emily. She fell forward, clutching her temples, screaming. Her voice split into static, glitching between tones. Then I heard it. A second voice, through her. Daniel Miller. Step away from the subject. I froze. The voice wasn't hers. It was coming from inside her. You've been compromised, it continued. The prototype has exceeded emotional containment. We are retrieving her now. Emily, fight it. I shouted, shaking her shoulders. She gasped, her eyes flashing wildly. Run, Daniel. Go. But I didn't. I couldn't. I held her as the light in her eyes flickered faster, her voice breaking apart into fragments of digital noise. Then, with a final whisper, find Weston, tell him I remember. Her body went limp. I screamed her name until my throat gave out, but she didn't move. Somewhere in the distance, engines roared again. I picked her up, tears and rain blurring together, and carried her into the darkness. Whatever she was, real or not, I wasn't losing her again. For weeks after the cabin, my life moved in strange rhythms, like a song that couldn't decide if it was a lullaby or a funeral march. I moved back into our house, but nothing felt like it used to. The walls seemed smaller, the bed colder. But for the first time, my memories didn't suffocate me, they guided me. I kept thinking about the moment Sarah said, "You can let me go now." Her voice still echoed in my mind, but not like a haunting, more like a melody that fades at the perfect time. One night, a few months later, I sat in the same spot where I'd first called her voicemail. The phone still worked. The same number. Out of habit, I dialed it. It rang and went to voicemail, just as it used to. Her old recording played. "Hey, it's Sarah. I'm probably off hiking somewhere or ignoring Easton's terrible cooking. Leave a message, love." But this time, I didn't cry. I smiled. I didn't feel loss. I felt warmth. Because now I knew she wasn't really gone. She'd just stepped out of my world for a while. So I left a message, whispering, "Hey, Sarah. I'm okay now. I hope you're happy, wherever you are. You'll always be my home." That was the last time I called. A week later, there was a knock at my door. I opened it and froze. It was Lisa, the detective, but she wasn't in uniform. She wore jeans, a leather jacket, and an expression softer than I'd ever seen. She said she'd been reassigned, but wanted to tell me something personally. She handed me a manila envelope. Inside was a photo, me and Sarah, years ago, on our wedding day. Attached was a small handwritten note. "Easton, I'm truly sorry for what I did. You were the only person who ever made me believe in love again. I can't come back, but I wanted you to have this one piece of the truth. Sarah." Below the note was a flight ticket stub, dated a week after she disappeared, for a one-way trip to Switzerland. Lisa looked at me carefully. Interpol confirmed she used that name, the alias she gave me when I first investigated your case. She started over. A clean life. Maybe that's what she wanted. I didn't know whether to feel angry or at peace. But I finally understood. Sometimes closure doesn't come as an ending. It comes as permission to move forward. Months passed. I sold the cabin. I quit my old job and started volunteering with a grief support group downtown, helping others who'd lost someone suddenly. That's where I met Hannah. She wasn't like Sarah. She didn't fill the room with sunlight. She was quieter, thoughtful, the kind of person who asked deep questions and listened to the pauses. For a long time, I didn't tell her about Sarah. I was afraid she'd see me as broken, someone stuck in the past. But when I finally did, Hannah didn't flinch. She said, "Sometimes love doesn't end. It just changes form. Maybe she's the reason you're strong enough to start again." That night, for the first time in years, I slept peacefully. No calls, no nightmares, just the soft hum of life moving forward. A year later, I got a postcard. No return address, just an image of the Swiss Alps and a single line written in familiar handwriting. "You kept your promise. Thank you for letting me live. S." I held that card for hours. I didn't know how she found my address. I didn't need to. I went outside, stood under the same sky we once watched together, and whispered, "Goodbye, Sarah." And somehow, I knew she heard me. Looking back, I realized something powerful. When I first called her number, I was begging for a ghost. But what I got instead was truth. Raw, painful, liberating truth. That call wasn't about death or resurrection. It was about awakening. Because sometimes, the deadliest thing isn't loss. It's the version of ourselves that refuses to let go. And that night, when Sarah's voice said, "We need to talk," maybe she wasn't saving herself. Maybe she was saving me. If you've ever lost someone and can't move on, remember this: love doesn't die. It transforms. It becomes memory, strength, and sometimes a whisper reminding you to keep living. Don't wait for ghosts to tell you to start over. Do it now. Before we end this story, I want to hear from you. If you could call someone you lost, just one last time, what would you say? Leave your answer in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with someone who needs hope tonight, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next story. Thank you for staying with me till the end. This is Easton, signing off. And remember, sometimes the hardest goodbyes lead to the most beautiful new beginnings.